No, Jeannie, yeah.
Jean started it.
Yeah.
She started it for community.
Yeah.
She started
Is she alive anymore?
No.
Oh, okay. She died. R.I.P.
Well, let's maybe go ahead and double check that.
Welcome back to another episode of My Body, My Jokes. I'm your host, Morgan Lorraine Gallo, coming to you from Dude IDK Studios. I have a new website. It's morganlorrainegallo.com, and it's where I have my podcast links, my blog, my events, all the things that I'm doing in Denver, and eventually I'll put more shows on there. Today, I have a guest that was here last week, and if you didn't listen to the episode, it's amazing. I interviewed Madi Mayfield. She is a mindfulness coach from Fort Collins. We grew up together in Boulder, Colorado, and today we are going to go through a very interesting topic. We're going to be talking about Weight Watchers. And Madi and I both have some very intense personal experience with this diet, because that's what it is. It's a diet. It's not a lifestyle. No. It's a fucking diet.
It's not a community of friends.
No, it's not at all. But if you didn't listen to the interview with Madi, go listen to it. It was awesome. But now we're going to move into a little bit of topic discussion. So, Madi, what would you, before I get into this, like, how would you describe Weight Watchers if someone was like, oh, I don't know what that is?
Today, it's like a calorie tracking app.
Oh, yeah.
Food tracking app. And a accountability program is kind of how I feel, but it's a diet. There's points that you're allotted, a certain amount of points based on the amount of weight you want to lose or where you want to maintain, what's your goal weight. And it's bad.
Yeah. I would describe it as a cult.
Dude,
I would describe it as a cult. Like a straight up, like, you go to meetings, there's a leader, you have a very weird type of like thought leadership that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like going to church and being like preached at.
Yeah, the Holy Spirit has hit me, and the Holy Spirit is 0-calorie cake for some reason. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, and this is all kind of new info to me too, because I've been doing this research on Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers was founded in the 1960s. So a while ago. It was founded by a woman named Jean Niedeck. I don't know if that's how you pronounce her last name, but that's what I'm going to go with. And she created Weight Watchers out of frustration because she was on what was called the prudent diet in the 50s.
I've never heard of that.
Which had, it was developed by a doctor, and the idea of it was being prudent. It was like not really calorie counting, but really focusing on like certain like food groups, like lean meat, vegetables, fruits, skim milk, kind of totally outing like sweets and alcohol,
carbs,
and
fat.
Yeah, exactly. Like things that, you know, your brain needs. And so Jean was like, okay, this diet is like, there's no community. There was actually encouragement in the prudent diet to not discuss it with other people, which is really weird. So she basically created a system where you could be on the prudent diet, but like go and like have meetings. And so she started hosting meetings at her house where women would come and they'd meet once a week and they'd talk about, you know, their struggles, their challenges, their triumphs.
Which, like, okay, that in itself, in a vacuum,
very positive.
Fuck, I love that.
Yeah, very great.
Let's get the girls together. It's the 60s.
Yeah.
These men are trash.
Yeah, everyone's on stimulants. Like, everyone's like vacuuming on cocaine. It's great. It's a great time to be a woman.
It's girl time.
It's girl time in the 60s.
With Jean.
And so something that happened within the Weight Watchers diet was that it originally was like really strict. And I think, you have a thought about that?
Yes, I learned some facts about it.
Oh, okay,
but you finish that.
No, I was just gonna say it was really strict, but it still had a very the idea was like no calorie counting. Like they were very against that, but it was still a very strict diet in terms of what food groups you could engage with, really.
Yeah.
But
and it started out the same, where it's like you can eat as much fucking celery as you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Celery, 0.
Yeah. Eat a head of lettuce if you want every single day. You're going to be fine.
And there was something I don't know if I'm going to say the word right, but it was like Noxus leaves. That's not the right word at all.
Oh.
Some type of leaf, and it was like
Sounds
a flower,
great.
and you could eat as much of that as you wanted.
Oh, awesome.
And then,
I might as well just fucking graze on the side of the highway.
What am I,
at
a
this point.
bunny rabbit?
Yeah, what?
But then you also could eat liver once a week, and they encourage that because it has, which actually, if you really get into some
don't
crazy
do this to
shit,
me, Maddie.
yeah, if you really get into some like no GMO, like pasture raised, non-pasteurized milk, raw milk, like those kind of people. Have you heard of those kind of people?
Yeah.
They're eating liver. They're eating liver once a day.
Is it chicken
It's a cow liver.
Oh,
it could be any kind of liver, but beef liver is the easiest. But
isn't liver the organ that filters out toxins in your body?
Yeah, but it's the most nutrient dense organ in your body. Like that is where all the nutrients are.
What nutrients though?
I don't know, the ones you need, I think.
Protein?
Definitely protein.
Okay, yeah.
And then like a lot of vitamin A, probably like all the vitamins you need.
All
like
the
they say that a tablespoon of that a day is equivalent to all the minerals and nutrients that you're missing.
How do you eat a tablespoon a day of liver?
Well, you put it in the freezer.
I hate that you have an answer for this.
I know, and I don't do this, but I went to a preconception girls club one time.
Okay.
With my friend who was
preconception as in pregnancy?
Pre-pregnancy. So like women who are trying to get pregnant.
Oh, okay. How to like fuel your body. Okay.
Not one bit trying to get pregnant, but my friend was experiencing a miscarriage, and so I was like supporting her in that.
Yes.
And I learned so much, but it really overwhelmed me at this little girls group. But they said liver, you just get it from a farm, right? You source it from the farm where you get your raw milk and your chicken and your eggs.
Oh my God.
Put it in the freezer, just scoop off a good slice from a tablespoon and just go ahead and spoon that into your mouth, and that's it. That's all you have to do.
It makes sense if they like dried it and made it into a powder.
You can do that
like,
too.
That would make sense to me.
It's more effective if you don't do that though.
Awesome. Great. I'm so happy.
This was like a nurse practitioner who specializes in the GAPS diet, which is for people who have really fucked up guts. So can't conceive as well. So
interesting.
Yeah, fun facts. Anyways,
Does
liver
she
was
wear,
on
mandala beads around her wrists.
No, she wasn't. She was like 47, and she was like, and I'm having my 6th baby.
Jesus,
she's like that
Christ.
Kind of vibe. You ever watch Broad City?
No, but I have heard. I've seen bits of it.
There's an episode where they're a part of a co-op, and the co-op grand master is like this 60-year-old woman with a baby, like latching on her.
No.
She was like that kind of lady, but
oh my God.
I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
Anyways,
there's so much information about nutrition that you would like never know.
For
it's
sure.
Insane.
You could go nowadays. You could go anywhere with that. But I'm just saying they were on to something in the 60s.
Absolutely were.
When they were encouraging liver consumption with the Weight Watchers diet.
That's some witchy shit.
That is
putting
some
a bunch
shit.
of women in a room together. And I don't know why I said that. It's because I'm wearing a witch shirt.
I was gonna say you gotta notice the shirt.
Something that I found that was interesting is that Weight Watchers is long standing as quote unquote the most successful commercial diet. Whoa. And the reason for that is because in a study, this study is a little outdated by a few years, but the study looked at a sample of a ton of people that had been on diets and where they went in the years after. And I don't know all the diets that they surveyed, so this could also just be a bullshit statistic. But apparently 50% of people tend to drop off of the diets they're on, whereas Weight Watchers only had a 35% drop off rate, which is like still a good amount, I feel like. But also the thing that annoys me is that that's the drop off rate, but also what is the rate of the people who stop the diet years later and then gain all the weight back? You know what I mean? Like, because staying on the diet isn't like a way to live. It's not. Yeah. That's just not. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And then as of 2013, so this was a while ago, but as of 2013, over 1 million members attended meetings every week for Weight Watchers. 1 million people were attending meetings.
As of 2013?
Yeah. So it's probably doubled or something because now they have the app where you don't have to go to meetings.
Right. But before COVID, those meetings were a lot more popular. So now that their whole like meeting central business plan is
Jean's
stupid.
Rolling in her grave.
Yeah, Jean.
She's like, you guys aren't even on Zoom or anything?
No, yeah.
Weight Watchers is the type of place where, before COVID, that's a good point. Like you go, you check in with a random lady at a desk who's usually on Weight Watchers.
Yes.
A middle-aged white lady named Cheryl.
Yes.
And then you weigh in and she looks at your weight. You can see the weight and she can see the weight on her little computer screen. And then, I don't know if you had this experience, but usually there's a comment made. Hopefully it's a positive one, or it's like oh, you're okay. It's just 1 week.
Yes.
It's just 1 week, girl.
Oh my gosh.
And then it gets tracked in like, sometimes there was a book. Sometimes it was just your phone. I think I had to write it down in like a little booklet or something.
Same.
And then you go into the meeting room and there's a woman with a big giant Post-it sticky note canvas on an easel. And she writes down like 3 things to talk about. And then you're in a room with a bunch of women who are trying to lose weight and maybe have been for a really long time.
Yeah. I was talking to my mom before I came here because she's a long-term Weight Watchers now defector. But she said probably 10 times in her life she went on and off of it. So it's definitely she described it as just like a hopeless diet because you're just in and out thinking you're doing well, feeling helpless while you're doing it, and like going to the meetings feeling bad about where you're at, and being in a group of like old ladies who have been on it for who knows how long. And their moms were on it, right?
And the main structure of Weight Watchers, and I think the reason why it's really like honestly stood the test of time and has been differentiated from other diets, is the fact that there is no calorie counting but there are what is called points. And now I think they're called smart points. Like now it's like rebranded. But the basic idea is that you, depending on your height and weight, your age, your goal weight, they give you a set amount of points. And when I was on it, it used to be like they give you a set amount of points per day. And then they give you a set amount of points that you can also spread throughout the week, which means that you have your like kind of points throughout the day. Or like, I think mine were like 20 something points. And then throughout the week, you have like 40 extra points to spend if you go to a party, or if it's your birthday, or you have a special occasion, because that's the only time you're allowed to eat that kind of food. And it evolved into like, now the point system it's changed a million times. Different foods have become different points. It goes from low fat to low carb to low sugar to whatever. And now they have like the app where you can literally just scan a nutrition label in a grocery store and it will just automatically tell you how many points a serving of that food is.
So crazy.
Yeah.
They have a list of over 200 foods that are 0 points. So those are the foods you can eat as much of as you want.
And they encourage that.
Yeah.
They really encourage, like, you can eat a head of lettuce. Like eat a whole bowl of lettuce. Put some pepper on it. They're like, you'll be surprised at how full you are. And then 5 minutes later, you'll be surprised how much you shit your pants.
Yeah. And then you'll meet your weight for weigh-in, and you'll be closer to your goal weight than ever.
Fucking miserable. And you'll look insane. The point system, like, I think when it was created, it was like a point was equal to like 50-ish calories.
Oh.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Because if you think about like
how many you need.
Yeah. Like 20 points. That's 1,000 calories. Right? Yeah. 10 times.
And you were we were probably in the same range, like 23 to 26, I feel like was always my
something
range.
Like that. Yeah. And you know what? I talked about this in an earlier episode where I talked about my story. I talked about how, because of that system of daily allotted points and then weekly allotted points, that was how I learned how to binge eat. That was how I learned, okay, if I stick to my points every day, and in fact, if I stick to even a lower set amount of points than they gave me,
look at all these points I'm going to have.
Then on Saturday, I get all of this food and I can eat all day, anything I want. And then Sunday, got to go back on the plan.
Mm-hmm. And the day before the meeting was always like, I'm going to be so good today. I'm going to be so good. And personally, we'll get into like personal experiences, but I would get my 40 points, those would be gone by Tuesday, brother.
Yeah.
Those would be out of there.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like fucked for the rest of the week. And then I would just stop focusing on it.
Doing it. Yeah.
Because I was like, well, fuck.
Yeah. And it's not.
I had one piece of bread.
I think it's I
11
had one
points.
piece of cake and it was 25
Literally
points.
25 points.
I think it's important to note too, like, obviously I'm assuming the people that listen to this podcast are anti-diet people, anti-weight stigma people. Like, you guys are knowledgeable about what a diet is. But I think it's important to note that Weight Watchers has always marketed itself as not a diet, it's a lifestyle. And I can understand that there are people in the world who medically need to change their lifestyle. That is an absolute valid thought pattern and path that you got to go. It's personal to you. That's between you and your doctor. But in terms of like marketing something that is so restrictive as a lifestyle, in my opinion, is like really dangerous.
Absolutely.
Because you're basically saying like, okay, but you have to do this your whole life. And Weight Watchers, in my experience, I don't know if it's different now, they don't really like have a great way to transition you into a maintenance plan, because once you hit your goal weight, you're like, okay, well, I had to eat all of this to hit my goal weight. So to maintain, I have to keep eating this little amount of food. Right. I can't all of a sudden up it because my body is going to respond to that. Right. So they don't really have a good way of like transitioning you into the lifestyle that they claim to give you. Right. It's insane.
And the lifestyle that they're speaking of is restricted, disordered eating.
Yeah.
Like that is what it happens. Like, for me, at least, the accountability group of it all was like the most embarrassing thing to do. Yeah. It shamed me completely out of eating foods as a teenager that were fueling my body. Mm-hmm. That my body was like, hey, in 10 years, this ain't gonna matter anyway. Just go ahead and eat that last piece of pizza.
Yeah. And speaking of being a teenager on Weight Watchers, this was part of, I just kept Googling like,
oh my gosh,
Weight Watchers scandals, Weight Watchers pitfalls. And there's a lot, but the ones I wanted to focus on was this really big one because it's been an ongoing thing. So at the end of 2020, Weight Watchers acquired a adolescent weight loss app called Kurbo, which I hate that fucking word. It sounds like carb and it sounds like lardo put together. So it's like, I feel like it's just like, I don't know. Anyway, that's my own, whatever. But they acquired this weight loss app, and the app Kurbo was already on the market. It had been on there since 2013. It had been like developing. It was a weight loss app for adolescents aged 8 to 8 or 17.
8 is where it started.
8 years
8
old.
8 years old.
You are in second grade when you are 8 years old.
Oh my God.
You are in second grade when you are 8 years old. So they acquired this app, basically rebranded it, redeveloped it, whatever. And then a few years later, they released it. And it was marketed to the 8 to 17-year-old group. And it was marketed as a way to fight childhood obesity and a way to end the obesity epidemic and a way to set kids up for success. And it had a lot of backlash because what ended up happening was when you were on the app at anywhere from 8 to 12 years old, you had to have a parent's permission to be on the app. But there was no way to verify that a parent was helping you on the app. There was no like what we would have now, like as like facial recognition, or you have to submit your driver's license or whatever the heck.
Like when you'd go do a proctored exam.
Exactly. Like you would just have to you just put in, I'm above the age of 13 or whatever. Because if you were 13 to 17, they let you use the app by yourself. And there were a lot of prompts in the app that made it seem like if you were under 13, it's okay, just lie. And I couldn't find what those prompts were because Kurbo, it doesn't exist anymore. But
it's not around anymore?
I don't think so. I probably lied. I don't know.
No, I'm curious just because this was only like 2018, 2019. Ago.
Well, the reason I think it's not, or maybe it's changed, is because after all of this, there's this backlash, the FTC filed
Federal Trade Commission.
Yes, they filed a complaint about illegal collection of personal data from minors.
Whoa.
Because they were putting in, their name, their address, their email, their weight, their height, everything. And it was illegally collected. I don't know what about it was illegal, but it went against the like Child Online Protection Act or something like. I think it's called COPA.
Well, it was probably just what you were saying, is that there was no way to verify that a parent was actually getting on there, which is illegal to not do your checks and balances.
Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Yeah, that's what it was. And that was established in like 98. Wow. Like that's been a thing before the internet really even took off.
Wow.
So basically they filed this complaint in 2022 and Weight Watchers has to pay $1.5 million in penalties, and they have to wipe all of the data and wipe all of the algorithms that were created from the data collection. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
But like 1.5 mil for like how old is the company? 60, 70-year-old company.
Yeah.
That's been like the number one weight loss conglomerate.
Yeah, they're not gonna.
Oprah was their fucking center stage. She just stepped down. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, she stepped down. Last year, she announced that she was on a weight loss drug, would not disclose which one. And then Weight Watchers and her had some type of disagreement about her announcing that because, obviously she's been like the face of Weight Watchers for however
20 years.
Yeah. And she's been on the board for 10 years. And so she steps down. She's like, she can't promote any other weight loss thing for a year because of her contract or whatever. And then what Weight Watchers does?
Yeah, I do.
Is in the wake of that, they promote and create an entire like online based behavioral therapy system where you can request to get a prescription for weight loss drugs. So they're like, Oprah, we don't like that you did this, but we're going to take that idea. Thanks.
It's just like the ultimate sellout. And for me, they're just scrambling and like grasping at straws at this point because they know that their program does not work. Mm-hmm. They know that 35% of people go off it after a year. They know that after a year, 50%, I just read this statistic, 50% of people are not losing weight anymore on Weight Watchers compared to a control group of other dieting.
Yeah.
So like they know it's not, they actually released that information.
Really?
Weight Watchers did their own studies and stuff. And what it shows is it works a little bit for people in the first 3 months.
Yeah.
But past that, it's like people leave, people are off it, people are not losing weight anymore. So they're at the point where they're like, how do we promote weight loss and diet in a culture that no longer values that, right? Like we can no longer appeal to the masses because people are starting to be like, oh, it's kind of weird that you're dieting. But now we just have the good old.
Because I wonder if you think that because you're surrounded by the right people.
Yeah. Do you have a different?
Because I think that we're much more aware of it. And I think that the majority of people recognize like, yeah, this is pretty fucked up. But I think that it's so ingrained that a lot of people don't even take a second look until they talk to someone like you or me.
Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. Like it's pretty messed up. You know what I mean? Because I still see girls on TikTok that are, like relatively thin, like live in a straight size body and are so intent on like being thin and documenting their weight loss journey and doing it for the aesthetic. It has nothing to do with health, nothing to do with like, it's just, I want to have a revenge body. I want to look like Bella Hadid. I want to do X, Y, Z.
Yeah. And also nowadays I'll do whatever it takes to get there.
Exactly. And the weight loss drug thing is kind of scary in my opinion. I mean, because on Weight Watchers, like you have to qualify, like you have to have a certain BMI or certain weight or whatever in order to ask for a prescription. You can't just like get on there and be like, hey, can I get the shot or whatever? But it is kind of like, Weight Watchers saw that there was money in the market.
Right.
They're like, people want weight loss drugs because they don't want to deal with dieting. They don't want to deal with whatever. And all of the weight loss drugs in the past have been pulled from the market because they're bad for you. And it's only a matter of time before these other ones get pulled from the market.
I think it will be a long time.
Yeah. It probably will be.
Like, it's a matter of time for sure. It's inevitable. But I think that this train will ride for the next 5 to 10 years. Because I think what it's doing, we won't see the long-term effects until it's 10 years down the road.
Oh, yeah. Like the people who have been taking it for a few years now, we won't know what it's like for them long-term until it's been a long time.
Yeah, they don't have the studies to be like, and they're not public to be like, hey, this is not okay. This is not good for your body.
Yeah.
Long term, it has a really bad impact on your thyroid, which for women, like, that's your hormone center. Like I could go on. We should talk about that because I did go on Ozempic at the end of April.
Of this year.
Yes. And I stopped at the beginning of September. Because I think I was on like way too high of a dose. It was making me like really sick. And I really I didn't lose any weight. It gave me some like awareness about my emotional eating habits and like things that I still deal with, but it did not like do what it was supposed to do.
How did it give you awareness? What do you mean by that?
Because if you get to a point of you're eating too much, you literally physically cannot take it anymore and you'll throw up. Wow. So I was just like finding my limit because it shrinks your stomach. It shrinks your gallbladder. I was going to
say, is too much meaning like too much if even you were still not on it, or does it change the amount of food you can eat without feeling sick?
It changes the amount of food you can eat without feeling sick. It's a restrictive eating technique, in my opinion. Like, that's a solution instead of restricting yourself. It forces you to restrict yourself.
What was the decision to go on it, if you don't mind me asking?
I have just battled with myself and my hormonal imbalances, and PCOS has been something that I've struggled with. And they have said that helps. It helps with the symptoms. But what I learned while being on it is it does not fix the cause.
Right.
It does not find the root and help you extract that and create a healthy relationship with food. For me, I went on it to try and lose weight. Like, it was like a once and for all, like, if anything's gonna help me lose weight, it's gonna be this. And I was really depressed last winter. I was suicidal last winter. And I was like lowest of lows mentally. And I was like, you know what, my mom has been on it for 2 years.
Oh wow.
But she's pre-diabetic, so she was like, hers was a lot more like regulated and like she needed it. And so I just like, my mom and I had a lot of chats about it, and I thought it would support kind of my goals and like wanting to feel better about myself. It's just like any diet you start.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think it's really like interesting to hear someone actually talk about it, because I feel like all we see is like, oh my God, look, this person is like so skinny. You know what I mean?
All of a sudden.
And there's no discussion of like, hey, actually, like, this really fucked me up. Did your, what is it called? Like, did you not experience as much like pleasure in eating, or like, because I know that's like one of the symptoms, or is rumored to be, I don't know, one of the symptoms.
Like food noise was a big thing that people would talk about, which is like the obsessive thoughts you have about food and when you're going to eat next and how much you're going to eat and where is there going to be food for me? And am I going to be able to eat, enough? Am I, just like I had a lot of food scarcity because I was taught to clear my plate. So I mentally had like, well, I don't know when the next time I'm going to be able to eat is. And so with Ozempic, it just like stopped the food noise. I stopped thinking about food. I would forget to eat. When I did, I also work at a brewery and a bar. So I'm like drinking beer at work and like there's food trucks, and like I would go home and throw up like every weekend because just consuming the volume of like 3 beers was like too much for my stomach to handle. So while there was like mental awareness of like, I can't like eat like this, I just, in the early like months of it, the first like month or two, I just was getting sick all the time because I was over consuming and it was like fighting against this drug in my body.
What was the moment where you were like, okay, this is enough, I need to stop this?
I mean, it was one of those moments, like face in the toilet and like I've been here before. Binging and purging when I was a kid and when I was a teenager, and like that can't continue anymore. Like absolutely. I need to like, I also just think I was talking about body neutrality when we talked in our like interview last week, and that has come from all this shit that I've tried. Like, and I don't know if you've experienced this too, but like all the diets, all the ways, all the things you've tried, exercise, over exercise, keto, carnivore, like all the shit, Weight Watchers, MyFitnessPal we were talking about, cleanses, like all that shit. What did it bring me but like further away from like loving and accepting my body as it is? You know?
It never gets you to where you want to be because you can't hate yourself into loving yourself.
Yeah. And I think I thought Ozempic was going to teach me to love myself through under consuming and like not binge eating. But instead it just like brought me further away from myself because I was just like throwing up every weekend and not feeling
and you can't
like myself.
Be like sick and be like, oh my God, but like I feel so good. Because especially if it's not even having the effect that you were desiring.
I lost 15 pounds. This was like right after my half marathon. I ran a half marathon in April, and that raised my cortisol levels. So I was like inflamed. My body was like heavy. I was like fucking ready for, I could hibernate and like survive on my like muscles and half marathon training forever. But after that, I was like highest weight I've ever been after my half marathon, which is kind of crazy. But I got on Ozempic kind of a week after that or something. And then, it was like 2 months and I had lost 15 pounds.
Wow.
So, but then I've stayed at that weight since, when was that? June. So, and I like, we're women, so I know I fluctuate up and down and that changes all the time. I've accepted that. But I think that's what it's brought me, is like, I go up and down all the time. And if I just stay in this like median range and that's what I've been for the last 5 years, like what can I, like I gotta just stop trying to change that.
And that's where your body wants to stay at. Right. It wants to protect you at that weight.
Right.
Yeah.
And the more I've just like protected my body from like dieting and Ozempic and like doing the injections, the more weight I've lost just from like less stress on my body and like more calm, centered, grounded feelings. The people I think you surround yourself with also impact that too. So
absolutely. Yeah. The energy that you have around you impacts your energy, which impacts how you treat yourself. I remember the last time I went on Weight Watchers, I was 22 or something. And it was like my mom had said to me like, oh, I was looking at the Weight Watchers website. They kind of changed the diet since the last time we were on it. And
did your mom go on it with you at that time?
Yes.
When you were 22?
Yes.
Okay.
And for reference, I went on it when I was 13, weirdly enough, because I had lost so much weight that first summer that I first ever started dieting that my mom thought that I should go to Weight Watchers to learn how to eat because she was scared I wasn't eating enough. Whoa. And Weight Watchers put me on a diet plan. They did not put me on a maintenance plan. And I was 120 pounds. And for me, that is like very thin. Like that is not a weight that my body can sustain.
Whoa.
And so they put me on this plan, and then like I just kept it was like really bad, and I looked sick. It was terrible. But then as I got older and I was binging and you know, restricting whatever, my mom, you know, called me and was like, so they changed the diet, like it's different now. Like now you can eat whole wheat pasta, and now you can and I'm like, great. And I was still, you know, in the throes of my eating disorder. So I kind of was like excited. Like it's kind of gamified, Weight Watchers. It's kind of like this fun game of like, ooh, how can I Tetris all of these food
Which I know
groups
you
together?
love, just like with your history. I feel like you love that shit.
Yeah, I love that shit. And so I was like, okay, that, you know, it's different. It's a little, it was a little more flexible, but in like a different way. And
which was their goal. Like their goal was to just like package it for you differently
every time.
The end of 2010s, right? The end of 2010s, they're like, how can we like...
It was rebrand after rebrand. It was no longer called Weight Watchers. It was WW.
Which is like World Wellness is what they were saying on this podcast I was listening to.
And I lost like 17 pounds.
What?
And I, after, I don't know how, a few months or something. And I distinctly remember being on the phone with my mom and dad talking about it. And I was like, I've lost 17 pounds. And they were like, that's awesome, Morgan. Like, do you feel good? And I said out loud, I was like, it doesn't matter because I'm going to gain it back. And it wasn't like oh, poor me. Like I'm such a, you know, fat ass. No, it was like, I knew that this was not sustainable. And I was like, it does not matter because I'm not going to stay this size. And I think that was the last time I ever did like a diet. And then I went through phases of like pretending I was a weightlifter or like running, like gaslighting myself into thinking I was a gym girly. I am not. But yeah, I just like.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah, because Weight Watchers is just like, it was my last hurrah. It was my last, like, I have to try one last time. And I was miserable. Yeah, I'm sure. You know what I mean? And even my own like restricting felt more calm than like being on a diet, because if I was restricting myself, at least I knew that I was like, I don't know, eating a way that made me comfortable. Whereas on Weight Watchers, it was like, no, I had to go buy specific food to create the meals that would fit into the plan.
Right. Which feels more like forced and like you're doing something wrong and maybe a little guilty or like shame that you're doing that.
Did you ever, when you did it, like when it was kind of in its heyday, did you ever have a food scale or like a points
my mom
calculator?
Did.
Yeah. They sold you all these fucking devices. It was such a game. It was so fun when it was like you were in it. Like you were like, okay, I'm gonna weigh 4 ounces of shaved turkey and I'm gonna calculate the points of this Nutri-Grain bar. And it was like, I don't know why.
It's so interesting though, because I couldn't get into it in that way.
Yeah.
Like I was more of just like a burn hard and fast and fail.
Oh yeah.
You know, like it didn't feel good for me to live within the confines of the structure of that.
Yeah.
My mom would always say, the structure is good for you. You need the structure. And like, it helps. It just supports you. And like, it did not. Like, it made me feel trapped and it made me go even harder when I was not on Weight Watchers.
Yeah, go the other way. Yeah. Swing on the pendulum.
Yeah. And then I just didn't care.
Did you like have foods memorized as what points they were?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to unmemorize them?
I probably could still tell you some.
Really? When I was on Weight Watchers, a cup of blueberries was 1 point.
A cup?
A cup of blueberries.
Sick.
And then veggies were 0.
Veggies were 0.
That's all I really remember.
Bread was literally like 7 points a slice.
What?
7 points for one slice of bread, unless you got that Sara Lee
the 45 calorie. I ate that shit. I thought it was a delicacy.
Good. Oh god, a little butter, a little peanut butter and honey on there.
No, not even peanut butter. PB2, dehydrated peanut butter mixed with water. Oh my god, dude, I can't. I gotta put a trigger warning on this episode.
Yeah, you do.
Oh my god.
I still use that PB2 because I like to put it in my shakes and I don't.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's what I use it for. Yeah. It's like to add to the protein. Yes. Yeah, for like a little peanut sauce.
Yeah. Yes.
However, I don't condone using that instead of peanut butter because peanut butter is so good and it's so creamy and delicious.
And it's just peanut butter.
And it's
just
harmless.
Food.
It's okay.
Food is just food. The worst that I ever got in my like restriction and my friend had to call me out on it was when I went through this phase of like weightlifting and I was obsessed with protein and, you know, whatever. And, I had this like snack hack where I made a bowl of like, you know, low calorie popcorn, like the Orville Redenbacher, you know, fat-free, no butter popcorn, tastes like cardboard,
literally
whatever.
Disgusting.
Yeah. And then I would make a bowl of PB2 used to have, or maybe they still have it. It's like almond butter, or it's like cashew butter, like powder. And I would mix, I think it was cashew, and I would put the cashew PB2 powder in a bowl, and then I'd put like a little bit of cinnamon in it, and then I'd put a scoop of protein powder, and then I'd mix it with almond milk, and I just made this like schlop of protein PB2 diet fucking cum, basically. And then I would dip the popcorn in the schlop and eat it. And I was like, this is a delicacy. I have hacked my way to snacking. And my friend saw me do that. She's a comedian. She came over, did some comedy shows with me in Jacksonville. She stayed over, watched me eat that. And she goes, Morgan, can I be honest with you? And I was like, yeah, what's up? And she was like, what's up?
What's sidebar over here?
And she goes, I think you're like really back in your eating disorder.
Oh, Morgan.
Because she had an eating disorder and she was like recovered. And I was like so embarrassed because I was like, no, I'm just like getting protein. And it was like, no, Morgan, you're eating like low calorie popcorn. You're eating literally protein powder and peanut powder mixed with milk because that's what you thought was. And then after that, I like went on a binge spree and binged for like a month straight and just basically gained all the weight back. Like it's crazy the things that you gaslight yourself into liking or pretending to like for the sake of losing weight.
Weight Watchers is full of that shit. Like I said earlier, there's a list of 200 things that are 0 points. Yeah. And it's just full of shit that you're like, I don't want to eat this.
Right.
But I don't have any more points left this week. I'm fucking 17. My mom's on the plan too. She's packing me whatever she's packing herself. That's 0 points. Maybe a sandwich on the 45 calorie bread, which I think was like still 4 points a slice. Honestly, I think bread is like so high because they stress like no fat, no carbs. The things that are high in the points are the carbs and the fat.
High density. The worst I ever saw, there was like a Weight Watchers really old magazine that came out, I think in the 70s, and I saw it on like TikTok or something.
Oh, cool.
And it was a Weight Watchers recipe book, and there was a recipe for brownies, and it was hot cocoa mix and gelatin. So straight up like gelatin, like Jell-O, mixed with hot cocoa mix to make a brownie. Is that not disgusting? Jell-O. It's literally, that's disgusting. It's just chocolate ass Jell-O. Okay, anyway, I get infuriated about this.
Don't get her started about those fucking
Don't
brownies.
Get me started about the brownies. Just eat a fucking brownie. Okay.
I know, don't ruin brownies for me like that. Or like,
just like gelatin.
Oh God, the things we
like with hot water. Oh my God, I can't. Okay, so moving on a little bit, I do want to stress that if you or a loved one ever feel like you are suffering from disordered eating, you want to understand a little bit more, NEDA, which is the National Eating Disorders Association, has a ton of tools and resources on their website, including a screening tool where I believe it's like a questionnaire where you can kind of get a better idea of where you might stand on like the scale of disordered eating. And you can find that at nationaleatingdisorders.org/screening tool. And I think it's good to know, you know what I mean? I always want to make sure I put out resources out there so you guys know that they're there for you, because I'm not a medical, like I'm not a licensed doctor.
We're not medical professionals.
I'm not, there's a disclaimer at the end of every episode. We're just talking shit about diet culture. But with that being said, I do have a question from a listener.
Okay.
And the question is, when was the first time you felt fat versus the first time you felt comfortable with your body? And I thought that would be an interesting question for us to answer specifically because of the way we grew up. Yeah. When was the first time you felt fat?
Oh my God. I think the first time where I consciously like recognized and wasn't like looking back at my younger self, consciously remembered, is when I was in 7th grade, I believe, and we had like, I don't know why, but in Boulder, we just had very tiny boys. All the boys were very small.
Yes, very small.
And I was so tall,
men.
small boys.
Yeah.
And I've been tall since I can remember. Yeah. And I've been just like thick since I can remember. And he gave me a hug, and he looked at me. We were like leaving a restaurant, whatever, and he looked at me. He's like, hugging you is so different than hugging. And then he mentioned another girl.
God.
And I mean, I'll never, obviously I'm 28 years old and that was 17 years ago and I'll never forget it. But I just recognize like, oh, people can see the difference between my body and then this other girl that they were talking about. And now I'm going to start to see that. And I did, right? I started to just see myself completely through that lens of, oh, I'm just like, like covering up my body, not going to the pool when my friends would go to the pool because I just didn't want to ever be perceived as fat.
Yeah. And how old were you when that happened?
I was like 11 or 12.
11 or 12. Wow.
Probably 12.
God. And when was the first time you felt comfortable in your body? Or you felt like maybe you started on that journey? I guess?
I went to like women's business retreat in Havasu, in Lake Havasu, Arizona.
Oh, Arizona.
And it was just like a group of like women who are like in Western fashion influencing. And I found myself there because of an old roommate that I had from when I went to University of Wyoming. My
lots
long
of flat brimmed
past,
hats.
a lot of weird stuff going on.
Okay, lots of cow print.
Lots of cow print. Lots of just hey y'alls. And there was just like a lot of like empowering each other going on. And these women were doing like little photo shoots for their Instagrams because they were influencers. And that was like the day I decided to wear a bikini in front of a bunch of like skinny influencer bitches. Yeah. And honestly, I never looked back. Like they were so kind and like comforting and like, yeah, girl, get it. Like there was a lot of encouragement going on.
Hell yeah.
And that just from there, honestly, it spiraled. I was starting to coach. That was the first time I ever spoke at a retreat. So that was like my first ever like, okay, I'm stepping into this new like version of myself. And that was, wore a bikini and was like, fuck, I'm rocking this.
That was a few years ago?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That was like 3 years ago.
Yay. Yeah. So we're on the journey.
We really are. Journey. We're always on the journey.
That's awesome.
What about you?
The first time I felt fat, God, I was really young. Aww. I mean, probably in 4th grade, 5th grade when I was like 9 or 10 because we had gotten a trampoline in our backyard and I was dancing. I started like hip hop dancing, which is very different than like ballet or like jazz. And so it was like a lot more high energy. And I had like, I think lost weight. I didn't know because I was a kid. And my dance teacher made a comment about it to my mom and was like, ooh, she's losing weight. And my mom was like, I know, she's been jumping on the trampoline. She's been dancing. And that was the first time that I ever felt like, oh, people are noticing my body. And then I think my weight had like gone back to wherever it was because, you know, the trampoline is always fun when you're a kid. It's only fun for like a year. And then you're like, okay, I've done this. You know what I mean?
God, I love the trampoline.
And then, I know, right? And then, you know, you take a break from dancing over the summer or whenever the school year ends. And like when I had gotten back into the body that I was at or whatever, I was a growing kid, I realized I was like, oh, I'm a fat girl. Like people think I'm fat. Like people like Heatherwood Elementary, man. Like I was the fat girl. And then I think the first time I ever felt comfortable in my body, I don't fucking know, maybe like a few weeks ago. Maybe like a few that. Like I still don't like I feel comfortable in the way that I'm happy that I haven't had insane fluctuations because my whole life has been up and down, binge restrict. So I've had such huge weight cycling that I've never really like been able to like fit into the same clothes for an extended period of time. So now that I can wear everything in my closet and it fits and it's been fitting for like a good like 8 months, I'm like, oh, okay, like this is who I am. Yeah. Like this is my body. This is where it wants to be. And it helps to have a nutritionist that like, you know, she weighs me and I don't know how much I weigh. She doesn't like tell me, but you know, she explains to me whenever I freak out about I ate too much dessert this week or I did this. She's like, well, your weight is the exact same. Like, and it makes me be like, oh, like I'm fine. It's okay. So I feel like maybe that started like very recently.
Yeah. And so much of that is just the untangling of your mind that you're doing and the mindset work that you're doing with your therapist and with the nutritionist and with the work you're doing here. Like, whether you think so or not, you are like not only teaching and educating other people and like inviting them into your story, but you're also like healing your own shit by talking about it and by showing up in this way. And I think that comfortability in your body will just continue to grow.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think that's so beautiful.
Thanks, man.
So happy
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks for the interview that we did. Thank you for talking about Weight Watchers, our favorite fucking
Gotta love it.
topic. Oh my God. Maddie was very excited when we decided on that topic. She's like, oh, I got some shit to say. Which honestly, same. So I'm glad that we got to do it.
Absolutely.
Before we sign off, where can everyone find you?
Find me on Instagram at Mindful Maddie Jane. Maddie is Madi. And that's in there. And, you know, if you're ever in Fort Collins, come on over to Odell Brewing Company or come to my workshops. Doing a lot of fun stuff up north. So, but that's where I post it is Instagram. So that's where you'll connect with those events.
Cool. And then if you're in the Denver area, I have some events coming up. I'm doing a well, actually, I don't know if this episode will come out, but if it comes out before then, I'll just say we have a size inclusive clothing swap happening on December 7th. It's on my website. And then I'm doing a Galentine's edition of the Hourglass Social, which is a female and queer focused happy hour / comedy show. It'll be February 8th. That's all on my website, morganlorrainegallo.com. And hopefully Maddie will be at a future one. Maybe
I'm definitely trying to go to February.
Doing her thing, slanging her business all around the place. And, you know, just as we leave you guys, just remember, you don't have to watch your weight. Just watch your fucking mouth. Bye. Oh, that was stupid, right?
Were you holding on to that one?
Thank you so much for listening to My Body, My Jokes. Please be advised that the information provided in this podcast is for general discussion purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. Always, always, always seek the advice of a qualified healthcare professional with any concerns you might have regarding the topics discussed in today's episode. Also, if you or someone you know is struggling with an eating disorder, please call the National Eating Disorders Association helpline at 1-800-931-2237. Bye.